Hi everyone, my name is Thomas and I'm excited to show you my greenhouse today. So a little backstory, my grandpa and my dad started this business 33 years ago and now it's my job to grow the plants. So does everybody here know what plants need to grow? If you said water, sunlight, soil, you're correct. But the one other thing that a lot of people don't realize is that plants also need to stay warm. And that is what the job of the greenhouse is for. So I'm going to turn the camera around and show you a bit of the greenhouse. There we go. So as you can see, the walls and the ceiling are all made of glass. This glass lets the sunlight come in, but it keeps all the cold air outside. So no matter what time of year it is, it's always warm inside so that plants can stay happy. The warmth of the greenhouse is probably my favorite part of working here. No matter what time of year it is, even in the middle of winter, I can walk around in here in a t-shirt and enjoy the sun on my face and feel the warmth and spend time with plants. So right now we are growing Christmas plants. These ones here are called poinsettias. We started growing them in June, so right in the middle of summer. Pretty crazy to think that we're looking at Christmas when we should be having summer holiday. So I'll open up the pot a bit, take out the water line. So what you see right here is what we call a grower pot. It's very plain, very basic, but it has holes in the bottom. These holes let all the water drain out and the fertilizer drain out so the plant never has too much. You can always keep the plants happy. How many plants do we have? Quite a few. We have about 30 acres of poinsettias right now. So we're looking at around half a million poinsettia plants that we grow in a season. We sell them to No Frills and Loblaws and Home Depot. And then that's where all of you guys buy them from. So I showed you the growing pots, but now I'm going to show you how we get them ready to ship. So we have all these different colors. We got red, white, pink, and glitter. That's what we call glitter. And then we put them into these fancy pot covers. So we can do all sorts of different colors. So we can put the white poinsettias in silver pots. This one's my favorite, putting a red poinsettia in a red pot. I know it's a little bit simple, but it is my favorite. And yeah, we have different sizes. So you can grow a poinsettia pot anytime during the year, but it only goes red or white. It only changes color when the days get short enough. So after summer is finished, the days get shorter and shorter and shorter, and the poinsettia can tell, and then they change color, and they're ready by themselves in time for Christmas. So before we ship them to the store, we put a sleeve on them. They look a little bit funny in the sleeve, but it keeps them safe when they're in the truck and at the store. So all the leaves go up. And this is what you'll actually see at a store. It doesn't look as nice, but it keeps them safe. Our soil. So that's a good question. We don't actually use real soil here. We use something called peat moss. So here is a pot I pulled out of the pot, or the plant is out of the pot. You can see all the roots in here. And this is actually peat moss. They harvest it from bogs, and it's all old, long dead plants that died many, many years ago. So let's take a little walk. we have some other cool plants in a different part of the greenhouse. How many colors? So over here, all you see is red, because this is our red area. The place where we grow the other ones are far away. I don't have time to walk to it, but we grow white. There is some orange, but orange isn't very popular. It's more of a crisp, like we need Christmas colors, not Halloween colors. Then there's some very bright pinks, and there are some purples out there, but they're very rare. And yeah, poinsettias are mainly just a Christmas plant. You can grow them other times of the year, but nobody really wants to buy a Christmas plant when it's not Christmas. Oh, this is our sweeper machine. It cleans the floor, so it's like a really big broom on wheels. I love driving that thing around. So over here in this last section, we grow some house plants. So I thought I'd show you some of those as well. Do poinsettias grow in the wild? They do, in fact, just not in Canada. So poinsettia is a tropical plant. It likes warm temperatures. So you'll find it down in Mexico and Costa Rica and all those areas. So, why don't we take a look at this? So these are all baby houseplants right here in these plugs. So when we start with our plants, we will plant them into these small little soil things. And then later we transplant them into a bigger pot. So we'll take this little plug when it's ready. It's just a baby plant right now, so it doesn't need very much room. But when it gets bigger, we'll find a pot, a grower pot like I showed you before. And we'll make a little bit of a hole. And we'll plant it. Make it all nice. And then this goes into the greenhouse to get into a big plants. So yes, all plants need fertilizer. They need food to grow. So we do use fertilizer to keep them happy. If you don't give them enough fertilizer, they will go light green and they'll get all tall and stretchy and weak, and you'll get a very sick plant. It's like people. If you don't use food, you get sick. And then right here, these are how we get our good bugs. So when we have bugs in the greenhouse that eat our plants, we're not very happy. So we buy these good bugs. They live in these little packages. We put it on the side of the pot. And then the good bugs will go crawl through the whole crop and they'll eat all the bad bugs. They're like my little helpers. And we have different bugs too that live in these paper bags. Over here, we have something that's really cool. This is a baby banana tree. Right now, it's very small, it's young. But this little plant, if you give it enough warm temperature and enough water, it can grow all the way up to the roof in just 3 years. But we sell them mostly because they look really nice in pots and planters in the summer. It depends on the plant. We water them whenever they need it. So one of the ways we water is with these big contraptions right here. We call it a water boom. It's pretty self-explanatory. So I'll turn it on and you guys can take a look. So this boom will go right over the entire crop. It's putting the same amount of water into each pot. And when it gets to the very back, it will stop. So the plants get wet on top, but a lot of it does get into the soil. And when they dry out, we do it again. And in the spring, we grow lots of different items, flowers, vegetables, herbs, anything that you plant in your garden, we grow. We use very many different types of beneficial insects. We have parasitic wasps, little tiny beetles, nematodes, just to name a few, mites, and we actually even have a special type of bacteria that we can spray on the plants to eat fungus. So yeah, that's all the stuff we do here. My favorite type of plant? Well, in the spring, we grow all sorts of herbs and veggies, and I have a really big vegetable garden at my house. And my favorite vegetable is a tomato. So probably the tomato plant. I know it's not super flashy or beautiful, but it ends up on my dinner plate, so it makes me happy. What temperature do we keep the greenhouse at? So again, it depends a little bit on the plant. The greenhouse I'm in right now is at 22 degrees Celsius, so it's like summertime. And some other plants like it a little bit cooler, so usually around 18 degrees Celsius. And we can actually grow different temperatures in the greenhouse. So there's walls in between each zone. You saw as I walked through the door. So we can heat each zone at a different temperature so all the plants can stay happy at their preferred temperature. So we get the poinsettia cutting. So it's like a little clipping of a poinsettia. And we get it around June. It goes into those little tiny soil plugs I showed you, and they stay there for about a month. Then it gets planted into a grower pot, and it stays in the grower pot for 5 months or so, depending on how big of a poinsettia we need. I'll walk back to the poinsettias. What care is required to keep poinsettia growing? So one of the biggest mistakes people make with poinsettias is that they have them too cold. So you buy a poinsettia at Christmas time, so a lot of people think, oh, poinsettias like Christmas temperatures. And that's not true. They like to stay fairly warm, the same temperature as us. They need a little bit of water just so that the soil is moist. They don't like to be sitting in like a pond. They don't want to be wet. They just need to stay just a little bit wet. And if you put them by a window, then they'll stay a bit more happy. Generally, poinsettias will live for 1 to 2 months in the house before it needs more sunlight and would have to be in a greenhouse again or outside. So yeah, you're looking at about 1 to 2 months. Are poinsettias poisonous? Yes, but in large amounts. So lots of people have said, oh yeah, if you leave your poinsettia out and your cat eats a leaf, they're going to get sick. But it needs a lot more than one leaf to get sick. Like a mid-sized dog could have to eat like 3 or 4 whole plants to get ill. So if you don't catch them before they eat more than one plant, you might have a problem. Mixed colors. So over here, we have the mixed color poinsettias. And they're actually the child of 2 different poinsettias. So they'll take a white poinsettia and a red poinsettia, and they'll breed them together. And you're ending up with a poinsettia that doesn't know whether it wants to be white or red. You can actually see that it's trying to be one or the other. So we have a whole leaf here that's white, and you'll see that from time to time. Looks kind of cool. Oh, and this one right here decided he didn't want to be white at all, so he's just red now. If you go onto Google Maps and you zoom out, you can see greenhouses quite easily. It's usually just looks like a big, large white block on the ground somewhere. So you can see them, like if you're in an airplane and you're flying across Canada and you look down, some of the greenhouses are big enough to be seen from an airplane. I don't know about space, but I have seen them when I've been in an aircraft. I was looking for them. Oh boy. How many types of plants do we grow in a year? It's well over 500 different types. Most of them are outdoor types for spring and summer. And then we have only a few types that we grow in the winter, which is, yeah, mainly poinsettias in the winter. So that's cool. So if you look at this leaf, maybe I'll break one for you. Oh, I'm sorry, little poinsettia. If we're looking at this poinsettia, the shape of the leaf is the same. So poinsettias are a little bit special. They're when they ripen, it's actually green leaves like this one that are a little bit higher up that will change color. So this leaf was green at one point until the plant decided it needed to change into flower. So the actual flower is just this part right here. The big ring of leaves around the outside is old green leaves that changed to white to make, not really sure the biological reason for it, but it does look nice. And yeah, depending on which store we ship it to. So yeah, there you can see that we have President's Choice right there. And this one's for a different type of store. Don't have the label, so I don't know. And we even do mixes. So this one has a fern, 2 poinsettias, and a clancho. Yes, we get a lot of our cuttings and seeds from down south. So most of the places we buy them from are warm year-round because it's cheaper for them to run a greenhouse in the lower countries. And they ship it up here by airplane, so they'll take the cutting off of a plant, they will put it on an airplane, and we'll get it 1 or 2 days later, and then we root it into its own soil, and it will grow up to be a brand new plant. Lots down in Mexico and El Salvador and Costa Rica, they're all in that area. Some in Africa, we don't get much from there. So are we talking about the sleeve over here? So being in this package does not hurt the poinsettia, but if it stays in there too long, it's not going to be very happy. So when it's in here, it's very stable, like it's not going to break, whereas if you push in here, you're going to break leaves. So it keeps it safe, but you don't want them to be in the sleeve for more than like 3 days. Otherwise, it's going to start getting sick. Like it won't be able to get very much light in there. It's all bunched up. And it can't breathe very well. Like plants do lose water through their leaves. It goes back into the air. And it can't do that very well in here with all that plastic. That's actually why we have little holes in here to help it breathe a bit better while it's in the plastic. Theoretically, you can. So if you take a cutting from your own poinsettia plant, you could grow it into a full-grown poinsettia for the next year, but it's very, very difficult. It needs to be misted with water almost every 15 minutes when it's young. And we have these big water booms do that automatically for about 2 to 3 weeks. So it's getting water every 15 minutes during the day and then maybe once or twice during the night, depending on how bright it is, how warm it is, just so that they don't have too much stress because they don't have roots yet, right? And then once they get roots, then it's a lot easier to take care of them. We actually do root a bunch of poinsettia cuttings for other greenhouses, and they plant them into their pots, and then they grow them to full size and ship to their own stores. We have our own computer software that keeps track of everything that we've planted. Each bench has barcodes, and we know exactly where these benches are. Each run, so this whole long section is under this barcode. So we scan a bench to a barcode and a plant to a bench, and we can tell where everything is all the time. Do poinsettias have a smell? Uh, Not a very strong one. So in the morning when the curtains open up, there's actually curtains that are all collapsed in the rafter here. When they open up in the morning, just before they open, and there's not a lot of air movement, you can smell it a very, very little bit, but it's very faint. If you just have one plant in a room, you're never going to smell it. When did we start the poinsettia business? That was a very long time ago. So I started working here after I finished grade 8. I worked here every summer with my family. And then after university, I came here and I worked full time. And I cannot remember a time, even when I was a little child, that we didn't grow poinsettias. So a very, very, very long time for me, my whole life. I was taught by the people who grew them before me. But it is a plant just like any other plant. So each plant's a little bit different. They have to be treated a little bit differently, but more or less it's still just a plant. And if you go to school for plants in general, like a horticultural type degree in college, you could probably learn very easily how to grow these. The worst part about growing poinsettias is that they're a very long crop, so like 5 to 6 months, and that's a lot of time to make a mistake. So if you forget to water them too many times, there's not a whole lot of water in the soil in this little pot, and you can kill them if you're not careful when they're in the summer. How do we get the seeds from poinsettias? So these poinsettias are not from seed, they are from cuttings. So what a cutting is the end of a branch. So it'd be, so we take this plant, for example. So here's the flower. So this used to be the end of a branch. So when the days get too short, it turns into a flower. But during the summer and the rest of the year, it's just a branch with leaves on the end. The place we buy them from, we'll take a knife and they'll make a cut right here. And then they'll stick that in some dirt. And then you get a new plant with more branches. And you do the same thing. And you do it over and over and over again. In a way, it's like we're cloning them. We take a plant, we break it into a bunch of little cuttings, put them in the soil, they grow, and we do it again, and they do it again. And you have a massive bench before you know it of all plants from the same original mother plant. My favorite color is red. It's the classic color for poinsettias. So about 90%, so 9 out of every 10 poinsettias that we grow is red. So I guess a lot of people also have a favorite color of red for their poinsettia. And it's just a classic Christmas color, right? We got the red on top, we have the green, and we even have red pot covers because we didn't have enough red in the plant maybe. So yeah, it's most popular by far. If you don't cut them, how big? So if you bring them home, they're not going to grow much unless you keep them alive until spring, and then you plant them in your garden. They'll grow another foot or so. But down south, where it doesn't freeze, so poinsettias will die if it gets very cold outside. But if you go way down south where it's never cold, I've seen them 10, 12 feet high. So I haven't seen them as tall as this greenhouse, but almost. It is more of a bush than a tree. How many people work at my greenhouse? It changes depending on the time of year. So when we're the most busy in spring, shipping away all of our flowers and vegetables, we can have up to 100 people working here. And then when Christmas is finished and we have a little bit of a quiet time, we're down to 20 or 30. So it changes a lot depending on what time of year it is. So one of the ways we help with that is we get students from high school working here at the beginning of summer, helping us with the last of the plants going out the door. And then when the students go back to school, we don't need the extra help anymore, so it works out pretty well. You would have to pollinate them if you wanted seeds, but we're not looking for the seeds here. We just want to have a nice, pretty flower to have in somebody's house. Down south, they do need to be pollinated if they want to grow in the wild. How do we water the poinsettias? So when they're very young, we water them with the boom that I showed you. We get water on the top. But when they get a little bit older, they get these really big leaves on top, and it almost works like an umbrella. So if we water on top, water's going to roll off this leaf, off that leaf, and then right onto the floor. No matter where you put water on this thing, it's just going to roll right off and onto the floor. So we have to water them from underneath. The way we do that is, if I crouch down, we have these water hoses, and then each of these little white hose go into a plant. And the water comes out of this dripper. That goes in the soil, and the water comes out right near the top and goes into the soil. The other option is if you have water on your floor, you can have it suck up from the bottom. So if this bench didn't have holes in it, if it was all one big piece of plastic, some people will make water come up on the bench, water goes into the bottom of the pot, and the plant's watered. So at this site, we have 16 acres, and then we actually have another greenhouse a little ways down the road with another 12 acres or so, and we're building more this year. So it's quite big. If I had to walk to the other side of the greenhouse right now, it'd take me about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how I go there. That is a very good question. I don't actually know when they started being used as a Christmas plant. I'm guessing it has something to do with the how they naturally bloom around Christmas time, like they want to. That's probably one of the bigger reasons, but how it actually started or who did it first, I'm not sure. Can you still hear me? Oh, there we are. My favorite thing about being a farmer? Well, there's a lot of things, but I think my favorite thing is that it never looks the same in here. So right now it's full of all these red poinsettias as far as you can see, but soon they'll all be sold out. And then we'll be growing little baby plants in here again, and then there'll be spring plants. So lots of different plants like geraniums and calibrachoa, all sorts of things that you put in your garden, and vegetables. And then those all sell out, and we go to another crop. So we have fall crops like mums and asters, and so it's always changing in here, which is really, really cool for me. It's always different, it's never the same, keeps it very interesting. Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Take care, everyone.